Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux with the Daily Racing Form. This Saturday out at Santa Anita, there are 10 races on tap, half of which are stakes races, and we're going to focus in on the final stake of the card. It kicks off the late double, race number 9, the Melair Stakes. This is for 3-year-old fillies that are that Golden State Series eligible California sired or California bred 3-year-olds. Mile and a 16th here for these fillies on the main track, and it is one of the more compact stakes fields that we will see this Saturday at Santa Anita, but the quality is certainly there. It does feature the return of Grand Slam Smile, who's really been spectacular to watch out in California. We haven't seen her since January. That win was on the turf, but don't let her fool you. She has 2 wins on the dirt at Santa Anita, as well as a win on the synthetic at Golden Gate. She's really taken everything that's been thrown at her so well in her 6-race career. This will be lucky number 7 for her on Saturday. Safa on the inside's a little intriguing. She's been knocking at the door for a while to get that second career victory, but listen, she's been pretty consistent, especially in her last 4. There's some other wild cards in here. You have a horse coming out of Sunland, Only One America, now in the barn of Peter Miller. We have a horse such as Madison Ray we haven't seen since Turf Paradise, also trained by Peter Miller. And then maybe we'll go off as second or third choice on the outside, Roberta's Love. The Hector Palma barn, who's had a very successful meet so far, but this filly has been very strong in all of her starts, especially her last 2, most recently winning the Evening Jewel, So when we look at this field here in terms of the time form, U.S. pace projections, I don't think it's very shocking to see what's kind of on tap for this field. When you look at this, obviously Roberta's Love was able to take them gate to wire last time out. It's coming out of 3 sprint efforts where they have gone quite fast, especially in her last 2 to the opening half. We do know that Grand Slam Smile can close, can be forward, but obviously looking at some of her races, she should be somewhat forward from the gate as well. And maybe looking at the option of maybe muddling the pace is the 2 Only One America, who typically tries to take them on the front end and at least has found the most success going to the front. 2 back at 5.5 for a long distance. She was very forward. She tired, but last time out she finally stretched out to the 1 mile distance. The furthest she had gone before that was 6.5 restarts back, and she was able to get to the front and kind of set leisurely fractions to her liking and prevailed with a nice win by 5.25. So this is what time form U.S. pace projects here in terms of the pace early on, and I pretty much agree with it top to bottom. Now, as we dive through the field, we'll go one by one here. We'll start with the number 1, Safa, who I mentioned talking about her. Feel bad for her. She's just 1 for 10, but she's 9 for 10 in the money. She's been able to race on the turf and the dirt, and her win was very impressive when she won at Santa Anita to break her maiden. Since then, strictly second place finishes, and she probably will need some pace help in here because she typically closes from off of it, but it is interesting to note that you look at her, she's never gone 2 turns on the dirt. We see those 1 mile turf races under her belt, but this will be a little bit of a new test for her. But obviously she has a little bit of versatility. She can be a bit closer to it. We saw that 2 back sprinting, so we'll see what Diego Pereira can kind of get from this filly. She's drawn to the inside. The 2 Only One America, big wild card in here. She's going to need to step it up. We'll take a look at her most recent performance at Sunland back in early April, and she was stretching out for the first time. $125,000 stakes race, going a mile, and she got to the front and she set really nice fractions, 24-3, 49-3. You can see 114-1 for a final time of 138-1. She just wins so easy in this spot. Obviously the buyer is lower than several in this field, but you have to really respect the way that she was able to handle the 2-turn distance. Obviously, though, coming to Santa Anita in this stakes race, I don't think if she even tries to go to the front, she's necessarily fast enough. We know that the 7 Roberta's Love is coming out of sprints, Grand Slam Smile. She's very accomplished. She also has a fair bit of speed, so we'll see what this filly can do. She might try to be forward, but she might have to rate and sit just off the pace early on. The number 3, Loretta Lynn, up next. This one of the Phil D'Amato barn. She won on debut at 6.5. They tried her at Los Al, and I thought it was a really nice performance. She stretched out to a mile. The stretch at Los Al can be difficult on some horses, and she just came up a little bit short as the favorite behind Madison Ray, who she has to face again. Now, they tried her on the turf, fresh off a little bit of a layoff, and now she's been on the shelf again. I do expect her to take a step forward now, moving to the dirt once again. And the question will be, will she be ready to race off the layoff? But with these connections, not really worried about it. And I wonder if her tactical sort of ability to be sitting off the pace will help her in a spot like this, depending what the pace is in front of her. Now, the big name in here, no shock, the number 4, Grand Slam Smile. We're actually going to take a look at one of her performances, but we're going to go to 3 back. We're going to look at her most recent dirt performance. It was here at Santa Anita, Breeders' Cup weekend in the Golden State Juvenile Fillies, and she ran very well. In terms of how many lengths she was off the lead early on, not drastically different than we've seen in a couple of her starts, but the way she's just gonna demolish this field was visually impressive. She wins by over 7 lengths. She did it very nicely, and I think the other thing to kind of note here, she clears in here. The other speed horses in here, they faltered. The horses that, you know, were part of that pace scenario, one of them finished 3rd, one of them was towards the back of the pack. So, you know, she wasn't that far off of it early on, and she was certainly in a league of her own in the stretch, but no one could keep up with her. So, you know, the horses that duked it out right out of the gate, she took a little bit of a wait-and-see approach and certainly worked out for her. Since then, she had a 2nd at Golden Gate, and more recently, a win on the turf up at Santa Anita in the $200,000 Cal Cup Oaks. And again, she did it so nicely. She was forward. It doesn't seem to matter what surface she runs on. She really is a talented Cal bred runner, a daughter of Smiling Tiger, who does look extremely tough in this field. To her outside, the number 5, Putt for Dough. This one out of the Antonio Garcia barn. She's going to race with blinkers. And she had blinkers on in the first 3 starts of her career. She actually won on debut. They put her in some stakes races, and for the most part, they were dead set on stakes. You can see for about 4 or 5 races, and then more recently, she's been in those allowance optional claiming events for California bred fillies, and she hasn't fared horribly, but she hasn't fared well. She's gone off at some big prices in those fields. She really hasn't been able to make much of a impact late and make up ground, which is a little bit of a concern. We'll see what she can do getting back on the dirt. She is 0 for 2 at Santa Anita on the dirt. She does have a 3rd place finish, though. That came 2 back. Again, though, it was sprinting, so it'll be interesting to see what the tactics are. She has one good race going long, although it was on the turf, and it was off the freshening. So we'll see what the blinkers do. Maybe they put her more into the mix early on. To her outside is the number 6, Madison Ray, who, you know, she was 3rd last time out in the Arizona Oaks, and I feel like when I recall the races that day at Turf Paradise, there were a couple of crazy stretch runs. This was one of them. She ends up being 3rd. She flattened late. She kind of, I don't want to say chased the pace because it wasn't that quick, but she chased and just wasn't able to make an impact late. You look at the top 2 in there, Sakura Blossom closed from way off of it. Pink Whitney was quite forward throughout. So I don't think, you know, she just had the same sort of punch that the other fillies had. Now, she was stretching back out to the mile distance. You go down the page, though, you can see she does have a win at a mile. She's going to have to go a mile and a 16th here on Saturday. My concern with her would be that mile race and the Soviet Problems. It was at Los Al, and it just seemed to set up for her pretty nicely. She took them gate to wire. She was able to hold off that late charge from Loretta Lynn, who maybe lacked a little bit of race day experience, but I just feel like it was kind of the perfect circumstances for her, and since then, she hasn't shown me enough, and as of recent, to really endorse her in a spot like this, especially when we move to this outside runner, the number 7, Roberta's Love, who we'll take a look at her most recent win. It was in the evening, Jewel. Safa ends up being the runner-up in a very different trip for these two. Safa closed from last, and you can see this runner was the pace setter. It was able to prevail in here by 3/4 of the length. She was coming from a 6 furlong race to 6.5. She handled it nicely, and she was able to make the lead. And they still went quick, especially when you compare that to her 6 furlong race 2 back. And to see her forward like that, I think it shows a little bit to her versatility. She draws the outside in here. And I think just coming out of a sprint, if she wants the lead in here, she can have it with everything mentioned before. The post, her early foot, and just kind of what we've seen from her coming out of a sprint race. So we'll see what Juan Hernandez decides to do. It is going to be his first time aboard this filly. So that's the field of 7 here for the Melair Stakes. And looking at this field, I don't think it's shocking. I have to go with the number 4, Grand Slam Smile. Her resume says it all. She's tactical, she's versatile. It doesn't matter the surface, the distance. She's been able to do everything. And I think the big question in here will be the mile and a 16th distance, because you get down the page, a lot of horses haven't gone that long, or if they have gone long, it's been on the turf. And for her, sure, her long race, going 2 turns, it's a mile turf race, but she has gone 7A. She looked very, very good in that replay that we showed. I mean, she just kind of put on a clinic, and I know she's had some time off, but man, she's working lights out. Look back, Out of her last 4, she's had 3 bullet drills. The only non-bullet was the 1 mile work. So they look like they've been trying to get her ready for this event. So I have to endorse her on top. I think when you look at some others in here, the number 1, Safa, and the 7, Roberta's Love are going to take a lot of respect. And I think there's a difference. I do think Roberta's Love has a little bit more of a tactical ability to be on the lead or to sit just off of it, where I do think Safa, though, is going to need the pace scenario to unfold. And I had a tough time kind of debating between these two who to use, but I'm going to use Safa. I think she'll go off at a better price than Roberta's Love, and she certainly has a little bit more experience. And then, as I mentioned, Roberta's Love, from a pace perspective and off her most recent win, if she can handle 2 turns, it'll be very interesting to see what she's able to do against this group. And then underneath, my 4th place horse will be the 3, Loretta Lynn. I'd like to see her race off the layoff. Obviously, we've only seen her twice since December, and I think she does have some potential, but she's obviously just in deep waters for her return to the races off that bit of a freshening. So for me, Grand Slam Smile is my top pick and most likely the favorite in the final of 5 stakes races this Saturday out at Santa Anita. Good luck.